Hey guys, new angle for you this week. Welcome back to the series I'm Turning 30, where I, Mitch, talk to my journey up to turning 30, whether it's events in my past that have happened to me, things that are currently happening to me right now, or things that will happen in the future. And I am resting today, and I kind of wanted to talk about something more chill, so I figured why not just kind of sit down and talk about sleep this week. So, with sleep, there is a couple of different things that I can talk about. So, first, let's talk about the evolution of kind of where I thought somewhere comfy was to sleep and how I sleep. Let's start there. The earliest memories that I have of sleeping are sleeping in a bunk bed with one of my older brothers. It was a bunk bed that I believe it was made out of wood, but for a long time I slept like that. I want to say it was probably about 3 or 4 years, maybe longer. I don't really remember exactly how long. But there was at one point where I changed how I slept, and it was when I got a big Pikachu pillow and a Pokemon sleeping bag. Now, I'm sure that the only people that remember this are my parents, because I think they may be the only ones that really saw it. I'm not really sure if my siblings saw it often enough to remember this, but I had this giant Pikachu pillow and this Pokemon sleeping bag that I would always sleep with. The Pikachu pillow I would actually take with me a lot of different places. Obviously, I didn't take the sleeping bag with me a lot of places, so people might remember the Pikachu pillow other than my parents from when I was a kid. I decided once I got both that I wanted to sleep on top of my Pokemon sleeping bag every night with a blanket, like a thin blanket, and a Pikachu pillow. And this was kind of the formation of one of my starting sleeping habits where I didn't want to sleep with anything besides maybe a blanket over me, depending on how cold it was, maybe a thick blanket, but all I really needed was something thin over me and just to be on top of something comfortable. And even in the present day right now, I'm essentially doing the same thing. I'm laying on what is essentially just futon padding, which is a little bit more padding than the Pokemon sleeping bag I had, but it's just a small layer of padding with a blanket, and that's all I really use to sleep. I will say it got to a point where the sleeping bag and the pillow itself got really gross. And I was a kid, so I didn't want to throw them away because I had had them for so long. And I believe they just got so gross that one day my parents just threw them away. And I was very upset that happened, especially with the Pikachu pillow because I took it more places than just when I was sleeping. Obviously, it did need to go. I do remember it being gross, like looking back on it, but I remember being very upset that it got thrown away and I had to go back to sleeping on a bed. Now, after this got thrown away and I got put back in a normal bed for a couple years, we eventually moved houses and I got a completely new setup. I once again got a bunk bed, but this time there was no bottom bunk. It was just an elevated bed with a couch underneath instead of another bed. And for a few years, I decided that I was just going to sleep up in the normal bed, up on the elevated bed frame, top bunk, whatever you want to call it. But then something happened to me when we got a certain couch, and I was just like, I don't want to climb up the ladder to get into that bed up there. I'm just going to lay on the floor and sleep on this couch again and just sleep on the floor. And that was my bed, is sleeping again on the floor instead of going into the bed and mattress and everything that my parents had bought for me. I wanted to use this couch and sleep on the floor. And by sleeping on a couch on the floor, I mean that this couch was a couch from IKEA and essentially unfolded to be like a mat that you could also use as a place for someone to sleep on, but was not supposed to be a permanent place, I think, for someone to sleep. But I converted it into that and folded it out every night and would essentially again just sleep on the floor from this couch, this fold out couch that I had. And I basically did this up until my sister moved out, and I believe I inherited her bed frame or my parents got me a completely different one. I want to say I inherited hers and we still had the other one for quite a while, but for the longest time I was just sleeping on the floor, and I did that up until I was I think 17 or 18. And then from then on, I didn't really have, I guess, any really weird sleeping situations where I was sleeping on the floor up until Japan. Had a pretty normal bed frame or sleeping situation. Every once in a while, when I was moving houses, I'd have to sell my bed frame and you'd sleep on a mattress on the floor. But after a while, I would get a normal bed frame and just have what most people would consider just a normal bed. But yeah, that was the kind of the end of the sleeping in weird places or having just the floor to sleep and deciding to sleep there. Again, I still can. I'm doing it now, so I'm kind of reverting to how it was a long time ago instead of a lot of my 20s. It's just not something that's super uncomfortable for me to do. So I just end up going along with it if that's what the world kind of presents me with or what I decide on for the area that I'm in. Also, for the most part, I have been a kind of person that falls asleep usually fairly quickly unless there is a big event coming up. I took a nap during the day, or just like the odd night where just something's kind of just going on with your body or mind or something and you can't fall asleep, which happens every once in a while. I also developed a slight condition as I was in my 20s. I don't know exactly when it started. I want to say probably around 25, 26 is when it started, maybe 24. I don't know, like younger 20s, mid 20s, somewhere around there. But I have a syndrome called exploding brain syndrome. Yes, you heard that correctly. Exploding brain syndrome. I'll put a little snippet on screen right now, so feel free to pause of what exploding brain syndrome is. But essentially, if you didn't want to pause and read it, it is essentially just my brain essentially firing all its neurons at once and just like feeling like this electrical blast kind of like just shock you awake like right as you're about to fall asleep. It is something that is like a recognized thing that just happens to people. So I don't know exactly why I have it, but I do. And not to say it affects me like every night. It's like I think I probably get it like once a month, maybe more, maybe once every 2 months, but it will just kind of just, I'll be falling asleep and it will happen and it will jolt me awake and then I have to kind of re-center myself and fall back asleep. Also, I love sleep, like even with the condition and like the weird places that I sleep. I have always liked sleeping. I think since I was a teenager. When I was a kid, I think I had the classic mindset of I didn't really want to sleep or nap or do anything like that. Like I kind of wanted to go. And it's like as I got older and realized, wow, sleeping's actually really great. I really like sleeping and just kind of like becoming unconscious. It sounds so weird, but I've always really liked sleeping. And yeah, it really just hasn't been hard for me to fall asleep at all. After I decided I liked sleeping, ever really since I was a teenager, I haven't had a whole lot of trouble sleeping except for those nights where I have the syndrome or just those random nights or maybe an event or something like that. And then last but not least, I wanted to talk about sleeping position. I am much more of like a stomach sleeper. I do tend to drift to like my right side as well to sleep. Sometimes I'll be on my left as well, but I can't really fall asleep on my back that well unless I'm like really tired, and then that's really my only position that I can sleep in. Also, I'm not really great at sleeping next to people, not because I move a lot, but if one, I am a furnace, so if somebody has even a remotely normal body temperature, then they will also start to burn up because I just radiate heat. And so I have to have like my own like separate place to be sleeping in, or they will start to get very hot as well. Also, along those terms, if somebody touches me while I am sleeping and I'm like actively sleeping, I will actively like try to shove them off or like push them away because I don't want to be touched while I'm sleeping. I don't remember really ever doing it, but like I know that like I have like pushed people off or like smacked people away when they've tried to like touch me while I've been sleeping, according to the accounts of other people, obviously. And then there's one other position, and I don't really fall asleep and like go to bed in this position, but this is more of a position that I will sometimes nap in, and it looks like this. So it's going to be kind of hard to show it, but this is essentially what it looks like. So if I was to take a nap on this couch, I would essentially lay back down right here, and then I would cross my leg like this. I'd have my right leg over my left leg like this, and just kind of like have my arms over my stomach or behind my head, and I would just fall asleep like this. And that position as well has garnered some flack from my family when I've fallen asleep in that position. Usually that's like I'm watching a movie or a show with them and I just kind of get in that position, and sometimes I'll just fall asleep and they give me flack for being able to fall asleep like that. But that is another way that I fall asleep or nap usually. So yeah, that's it for this week's video, guys. Thanks once again for tuning in. A little bit more comfy. I figured since I was going to be talking about sleep, why not just kind of, chill, sit down in the chair, give you guys a new perspective, you know? But if you guys liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear my stupid face talk about stupid stuff about my life every single week. But yeah, guys, that's been it. Thanks. Peace.